Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Gunflint Designs shop. I'm Mark, and I am thrilled to be out here today and not stuck in that kitchen for another day. This is, however, a kitchen project. This is the countertop, or it's going to be the countertop for the kitchen island. This is all a bunch of maple that I cut down a few years ago and cut up into these big, heavy boards. And we're going to put them all together and make a nice, pretty top that fits in that kitchen pretty well. We talked about doing it out of walnut. We actually took the dining room tabletop and put it in place and went, oh, nope, it's too purple. It's too dark and purple and weird in this otherwise bright room. So the dining room table is still going to be walnut, but we had to switch gears and go to maple for the kitchen. Now, the overall size of this is going to end up being something like 39 inches wide. So it's going to have about a 1 foot overhang for a bar top so you can sit underneath it. And it's going to be about 7 feet long. The problem is, most of these boards are 6 feet long, and it's not even 6 usable feet. I'm going to have to cut a foot off of it or something. So these are more like 5-foot boards that I have to turn into 7-foot boards. And I've done it in the past. I did it down in the man cave in the basement, if you want to see that video. But we're going to go through it again here on this one. So the first step is to take the big board and run it through the bandsaw and rip it down into more manageable size pieces. And now we're going to get into the joiner and the planer and truing up this material so we can start extending them and then gluing them together. Pushing this big, heavy, awkward board through my kind of flimsy bandsaw it's not awesome, but it's still kind of the fastest way to cut through this safely. I couldn't do this at the table saw, of course. Man, that tracking is way off. At this point, I have all kinds of maple all squared up and ready to start working on. I have them at 3 different thicknesses. That's just kind of how those slabs, cut up. This is about 6.5. I've got a 4.5, and I've got a 4. Different piles. I've got them in different places because when I go to make them longer, I want them to match up with each other. I don't want to put a 4 on a 6, and that's all silly. But first, I'm going to start planning this thing out. I ended up milling up way more stuff than I actually needed for this. I was operating under the assumption that Katie would want not the most boring grain, but the least busy. She wasn't going to want knots and crazy swirls and all sorts of stuff. I thought she wanted it to be kind of plain. I was wrong. She came out here and looked at it, and she liked the crazy stuff way more than she liked the boring straight grain stuff. So I went and picked through my pile again and picked out some stuff that was weirder and more horrible, really, as far as what people really want for lumber. And then I milled that up too. So I've got lots of stuff to work with here. And what I'm going to do is start with the most interesting pieces and start making them 7 feet long. The total countertop ends up at 7 feet long, so I'm going to turn them into more like 7.5 feet long. But this is the single coolest piece in the whole thing. I'm going to see if I can make you see this. Look at, you coming off of the knot, you have crazy swirls and compressions in different colors and then spalting up here. So I'm going to put this as like my main board. And then I'm just going to start turning these into longer ones. And I'll explain that a little bit later. How we're going to butt them together and make them strong. But for now, I know I have 2 inches shy of 5 feet. So I need to add 2.5 feet to this roughly. So if I can add 30 inches, 30 inches, this one will be good. So then I'm going to look at my other 6.5 inch boards and find about a 30-inch piece that I can hack off and plan to attach to this one. And then I'm going to do that for the next coolest looking one, which I think is going to be probably that guy. And then I'm going to switch to the next thickness, the next width. and do the same thing, most interesting down to least interesting. And then I'm going to just keep doing that until I have about 40 inches wide worth of 7.5 foot boards. Once I know what that's going to be, then I will actually attach these butt joints, let them set up overnight, and then I can true that up later. All right, let's take a quick look at my board stretching setup. You can see over there, I've already got a few of these done. What I'm doing is taking, out on my outfield table, I trust this to be kind of a really flat surface. And then I am taking the boards that I want to butt together and making sure that the fit is really square and tight and I like what I see. Then we'll throw some glue on it, slather that around. And rather than trying to clamp it from the ends of a 7-foot board to pull this tight, I have pocket holes screwed into this thing. So I line this up pretty good. I use a clamp down through one of the dog holes just to hold it flat. This board is upside down, so the top is facing down right now. And so what's more important to me is now referencing on the downward side. So if I clamp that down really tight, I'm trusting the important side to be pretty flat right now. Then I just take my pocket hole screws and tighten them till I get the glue squeeze out that I want. Go until they're tight. And I am trusting these to hold everything pretty flat at this point. I'll wipe off the glue, especially off of my table, so that the next one doesn't have some weird imperfection underneath it. Something just went wrong. I don't like this board anymore. I'm going to change this real quick. I have a crack here that I don't want to have. So I think what I'm going to do is take this apart, flip it end for end, and have that end be my new show side. I'm not sure how I screwed that up. So now, once I got the glue wiped off, I can go take a straight edge just for the heck of it, just to show you, just to prove to myself that this is actually a really good way to do this. There's a straight edge, and there is no daylight, even flashlight. There is no light coming through under that. Barely right here. But once this dries, I'm going to run it through the joiner and planer again to true up the edges and the faces, and we're going to be perfect with a longer board than we started with. All of my boards have been successfully stretched. You know, you've got 3 pieces here that end up 7.5 feet long. There is a very slight bow in it in one direction. End grain to end grain joints are just not strong. They never are. They never will be. With the pocket hole screws in there, that helps pull the joint tighter so the glue set better. And then it's also adding strength to that joint, enough so that I can work through the next step, which is going to be taking these back over the joiner and through the planer to turn them back into perfect 7.5 foot long boards. At that point, I can then glue them together as wider panels. And then at that stage, this is going to be really quite strong because the long grain across each of these seams is going to be holding the board next to it. And at that point, I can actually take the pocket hole screws back out, and then I will plane it one more time running through this planer. And we won't run into the holes. We won't have any problems, but then the metal is out of there for my own peace of mind. And yeah, we can move on, but let's start truing this stuff back up. At this point, the underside of this countertop is completely finished. I've profiled the edge just slightly, sanded the whole bottom, filled in just a couple of the worst cracks, and then I routed in the grooves for that channel, and on this side, I actually put the channel down in there. Before that, I sprayed on poly over the entire thing, so it's done, it's sealed up, it's ready to go. I just have to attach this C channel, and I'll show you how I do that. And I've never done a top this way before. Usually you sand it this side, then you flip it over and you sand it the other side, then you finish it, then you flip it over and you finish it, and you back and forth. This side is done. I only have to flip it once. Then the other side, I do still have to sand and fill cracks, and that's the top, so I'm gonna spend more time filling cracks and making it nice. So we'll see how this goes. I think having finished one side completely and going to the other side to finish it completely isn't gonna be a big deal. It shouldn't mess with the end result at all. I'm using two different finishes. This is just kind of cheaper poly to seal it. I just kind of wanted it to be tight, not, open grain. And then the other side is going to have that EnduroVar General Finishes product, way more durable, same stuff that's going on the cabinet, same thing that's on my dining room table, a lot more durable on the other side, the work surface, than the bottom. So having finished it here just to the edges, I actually tried to stay in the middle and not spray at the sides. That way the sides will get finished with the EnduroVar, but I have enough here that it's kind of rolled this edge. And we'll see how this goes. I've never dual finished a top before. So down here at the C channel, I actually cut this channel about an inch longer, a ½ inch on each end, longer than it needed to be. So then I'll center that in there. And that way, if there is expansion and contraction, the wood doesn't end up pushing into the end of this. It has enough room that it can kind of flex and move and stay free floating in there. So what we'll do is just kind of get it where I want it and draw each one of these ovals out. Then I've got a drill bit with a flag on it that shows me how deep I can go to keep from a long way from coming and poking through the top side. We wouldn't want to do that at all. And then just kind of center of the ovals, we'll get it started. Boy, that walked on me a bit. Hope this one does a little better. I'm starting slow to get it to bite. There. And there we go. Then I'll get all those drilled out, and I'm taking this chamfer bit, just a little bit, because there's just a little flare on the end of that, and I want to be able to seat this absolutely flush. So the chamfer bit helps me with that a little bit. Wrong size bit. Then I take the driver with an Allen head on it, and as straight as I can get it, I just start running that in there. I've seen people add epoxy to these threads. Maybe that's worth doing. Maybe I'll regret not doing it, but man, these things seem to go in there so tight that I'm just not worried about them backing themselves out. Then, when we drop the C channel in there, we'll just tighten those down on top of it. And over on the other side, I did use washers. I'd rather not, because it would just keep it that much shorter. But if I run this one in, it's not grabbing that by much. So I think we are going to put washers on there. Maybe I'll change my mind before I'm done here, but we're going to start with washers. And I am not tightening these much with that impact. I'm just using it to get them set, and then I'm hand tightening them with an Allen wrench at the end. Clearly we jumped a few steps ahead here. Katie saw the finished top out in the shop and she suddenly got very strong and very ambitious, so we hauled this thing and threw it in place real quick without getting the camera running. But here is what it looks like. We've been eating meals on it for several days now. We've been cooking in our kitchen. All the appliances are here. It's been great to sit in this nice bright space as a family enjoying dinner. I've really been enjoying it. But here, let's take a quick look at this. Sun's coming in through the window pretty bright right now, so it's got a hot streak on her, but look at the way that grain all turned out. This crazy bit right here is kind of the center of attention. Some of these wormholes I filled with some black and some clear. I started to think it looked too much like somebody just drug a Sharpie across here, so I changed to clear at one point. And all of it just goes to make it look very interesting. I did want to show you the way I mounted this was actually very similar to, let's take a look under here. So there's the support piece. I don't know if I can show this very well. Right up here is where that goes underneath there, and I had to drill one hole just to recess the screw head and the washer kind of right in underneath there, but then that allowed this to hang out flat. And then where I mounted it, I actually ended up putting threaded inserts in the bottom of the countertop. And then I ended up cutting slots, just like in the metal brackets, into the top part, the braces of the cabinets. This way, I could suck these down, tighten it down, and use the cabinet itself to kind of also hold the top flat. If I come out over here, you can kind of see there's the other C channel that's holding it flat out towards this end. I planned it to be all the way up against the cabinet so that you don't really run into it with your knees or your hands or anything like that. If we come down underneath this side, you can see there it is right there. We've got some pocket holes that you'll never know are there unless you're rubbing your hand underneath the bottom side of it. And then that other C channel sticks out under there. So it's being held really flat. Looks really, really nice. If I get down here and look, yeah, flat across the length of it. Pretty flat across the width of it. Kind of hard to tell, kind of hard to hold the camera, but it's turned out very, very nice. We have enjoyed having it. And that's going to wrap this one up. Thank you very much for watching. Next week, I'm getting into the floor. I've already peeled it all up. I've found some surprises. I've got the new subfloor and the new laminate flooring in here ready to go. So I need to go edit this video and then get back on my knees and start working on this. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.